Hi everyone, good evening. My name is Ewan Robertson. I'm the Managing Director of the Center for Economic Transformation at the New York City Economic Development Corporation. It's my very great pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of Mayor Bloomberg, Seth Pinsky, who's the CEO at EDC, and all of us at the Economic Development Corporation. And I want to welcome all of you to NYC Fashion Campus kickoff this evening. So let me just, my remarks are going to be brief, and then we'll let you hear from some people who are much more erudite than I am on the subject of fashion. But let me just explain to you a little bit about EDC and what we do. At EDC, we're charged with making sure that the city's industries, from media to finance to fashion, continue to grow and thrive and create jobs and economic prosperity here in New York. The fashion industry, as you all know, is truly a pillar of the city's economy. We're currently headquarters for more than 900 fashion companies. The industry employs more than 170,000 people, which represents nearly 6% of the city's private sector workforce. In fact, Fashion Week itself generates more than $800 million in economic impact alone. With showcases, trade shows, and so forth, it draws nearly 600,000 people out of town to New York City each and every year. But notwithstanding these impressive strengths, the industry faces unique challenges. So, in 2010, we launched Fashion NYC 2020, which was a study to better understand the opportunities and challenges facing the fashion industry. After hearing from more than 500 industry leaders, including many of the people who are here this evening with us, we announced a number of programs to help keep New York City a center for creative talent and for economic development around the fashion industry going forward into the future. These initiatives included a competition to encourage innovative retail concepts, a fashion incubator, which we started with the CFDA, which provides emerging designers with workspace and support, and a number of other important initiatives. But one of the other things that we heard is that while NYC has no problem attracting creative talent, we need to do a better job of attracting managerial talent. That's why we also focused on developing fashion's business side. To this end, we launched Design Entrepreneurs NYC, a program which offers creative talent the entrepreneurial skills they need, and later this year, we'll be holding the second annual NYC Fashion Draft, which is which will commence with an interview weekend connecting promising business talent with companies looking to hire. The application for 2013 will be available later this year, and we encourage all of you to apply and continue your fashion career right here in New York City. So you have an exciting and busy weekend ahead of you, and I'm just going to close with a few brief thank yous. Thank you in particular to Joel Towers, Simon Collins, and everyone at the Parsons The New School for Design for being such a wonderful partner throughout our study and also in these important programs. And also to the EDC team, Eric Johnson, Chelsea Rao, and Meghna Gandhi for helping to work so hard to put together this important program. I'm now going to invite up Joel Towers, who's the Executive Dean at Parsons The New School for Design. This is an institution that has been an incredible partner for the city. We're really lucky to have Joel here with us tonight and have him at the helm of Parsons, and I'll hand over to him. Thanks.
Thank you, Ewan, and welcome to Parsons. It is a great pleasure to be here and to say just a few words. You're not here to hear about Parsons. You're here to think about New York City and this industry. But the two are deeply linked and have been for more than 100 years. When we launched the very first fashion design program anywhere in the United States, and have since that time been advancing not just the fashion design side of the industry, but fashion business as well. And everything that Ewan said about the relationship between this city and this industry comes to life both within our curriculum, but more importantly, across the network and connections that we build between our students, our faculty, and this city. And the reason that Parsons has played such an important role in partnering with the city around several initiatives in relationship to the 2020 program is because of our deep commitment to building out design broadly and design industries in New York City. There was a recent study done by the Center for Urban Futures that talked about New York and the growth of design industries. And the truth of the matter is this is a city driven by design. It is one of the most creative places on earth, and it is creative both from the perspective of business, from the perspective of design, communication, and all of these things are very alive in the community and the culture of this city. And so we're very, very fortunate to be located here. We take seriously our responsibility to help convene and advance precisely this culture that is so unique to New York, and that makes us a very unusual global city. One of the things I think that Mayor Bloomberg has done so brilliantly over the course of his administration is to link New York to a set of global cities in a kind of transnational set of relationships, whether that's around key issues affecting us broadly in terms of environment or industry, but also in relationship to design. So it is a real pleasure to be able to work with EDC to advance the business interests of the city. Seth has been a great partner, as has the entire team, and we're very pleased to be part of it. And so we welcome you to Parsons, we welcome you to the New School. Mostly my job tonight is to introduce to you somebody who is far more well known than I am because he's on all sorts of media, which is my friend Simon Collins here, who is the Dean of our School of Fashion. Parsons has 5 schools within it, and our fashion school is extremely well known and is known in part because of our alumni who are the leaders in the fashion industry, but also the School of Fashion has our fashion marketing programs and our new graduate programs, and in conjunction with our School of Design Strategies, which has a bachelor's in business administration, really is at the core of the future of business in this industry. So Simon is going to moderate this conversation. He comes out of the fashion industry, has been a brilliant leader of our school for the last 5 years now, and I have the great pleasure of introducing him to you and bringing him to this podium. Simon Collins.
Thank you very much, Joel. You old flatterer, you. Gosh, well, it's lovely to see you all here. As everyone's been saying, here we are in Parsons. Of course, we're not actually in Parsons right now. We're in the New School. But this is a Parsons event, and we're delighted to be partnering with the EDC and with New York City. And those two things, Parsons and New York City, are intrinsically linked. We wouldn't be who we are without the city, and I don't think the city would claim its place amongst the most important cities of fashion in the world without the people that have been through our school. So we are very lucky, and you're very lucky being here. People pay a lot of attention to what goes on in Parsons. They really do. And so that you're here just for this weekend, if you decide to go and follow a career in fashion, which I'm sure many of you will, then it won't be lost on people that you spent some time here. And one of the things that we work very, very hard to instill in our students is take advantage of every moment. Make sure you make an impression. Now, what that means for you right now is that we've got some brilliant people here, and they've shown up to give their time to you. So make the most of that. I spend a lot of time talking into microphones, and one of the things that I say most of the time when I do that is make sure you ask questions, and make sure they're good ones. Because we don't waste time here at Parsons. We only do things very, very well if we're going to do them. And so I encourage you to think about how lucky you are being here, how lucky you are, how smart you are to be considering a career in the fashion business, because it's an amazing business. And you can do anything you want, and you can be anywhere you want. But take advantage of every moment. So we're going to talk for a little while. Our friends here on the panel are going to talk to you about what they've done and why they are where they are and how much fun they've had along the way. But think about questions for them. Because after we've talked for a little while, I'm going to open it up to questions for you from the audience. And I expect them to be good ones. And if they're not, I shall tell you. So do me a favour, do our guests a favour, and think hard about what you're going to say and ask smart questions, because then you'll be the one that asks the smart question. And later on, when they say, who was there? And we'll be like, oh, I know. Yeah, was that one who asked that question? So take advantage of that. And it's tough. So we've got some fantastic people, and in no particular order, apart from this is the order that they're written down in front of me. Carla Isabel Carstens. She runs a website which deals with internships, which should be very important to you, and she has some expertise in internships. So Carla, why don't you just give us a quick line or two on what you're up to and what they can hope to learn from you?
Well, I started free fashion internships when I was a student at UCSD, and I also work in PR. I specialize in jewelry, ranging from costume to fine jewelry. I just got a promotion, and I'm at HL Group now, overseeing their jewelry division.
Thank you. We also have Alexis Hanczaryk. How was that? That wasn't bad for a first go, was it?
Great.
Thank you. She's in production at American Apparel, and she had the good sense to go to Parsons before she left her education. Tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
American Eagle.
Oh, sorry.
But that's cool. I'm a Parsons alumna. I did the AAS Fashion Marketing and Merchandising program here after graduating from Michigan State University. And yeah, now I'm at American Eagle Outfitters doing production for men's graphic T-shirts.
Thank you. Laura Kenkel works for J. Crew. We're big friends with J. Crew. Jenna Lyons, sorry, I'm a merciless self-promoter. Jenna Lyons is from Parsons. Laura.
Hi, I actually went to Barnard College where I was a psychology major and kind of stumbled into the fashion industry. I started out at Macy's Merchandising Group in the product development program there, and now I'm at J. Crew, where I do production for novelty bottoms.
Thank you. Will is a buyer for Brooklyn Industries. Will, tell us a little bit about what you're up to.
Well, I graduated from Notre Dame with a degree in marketing and Spanish, so not particularly in fashion. And then I worked at American Eagle and then J. Crew. And now I landed at Brooklyn Industries, and I've been having a lot of fun. I'm a buyer for them.
Thank you. And Nancy, you're a very good friend of the school. We're delighted to have you here.
Thank you.
You're at West Elm.
I am.
Doing very well. So tell us a little bit about what you do there.
So I work at West Elm, which is a brand within Williams-Sonoma Incorporated. It's actually not in fashion apparel, but in the home lifestyle brands. I'm the vice president of merchandising at the company, but my career did start as also at Federated Department Stores with a very important internship that I had my junior year in college, which led to a full-time offer. Worked at Gap Incorporated in multiple brands, both within merchandising and design, and then found my way to business school where I went to MIT Sloan. I'm at West Elm, like Simon said, today, and I'm actually really happy to be here to talk to you guys.
Thank you. So I'm going to preempt a couple of things you're going to learn, just so you get them out there and you can think about them while you're listening to the answers. One of them is relationships. So think about where you are right now, in the seat you're in. Do you know the person next to you? Did you bother to talk to them when you sat down? So if you didn't, I encourage you to do that when you finish. And the second thing is the nature of a business career. You're here because you're interested in a business career in fashion. So that tends to not be a linear job. That tends to be a zigzag job. It can be all over the place. And so to demonstrate that, perhaps the panel can give us a few thoughts on how far they are from where they thought they were heading. So they studied certain things at school. They may not be doing those things right now. So Laura, why don't you kick off with some thoughts on how far you are from where you thought you were going to be?
Sure, I'm very far. I grew up in California and Florida. I came to New York because I was interested in fashion and also writing, so I thought I was going to be like a fashion journalist. I did a couple internships, and I ended up at Macy's Merchandising Group, where I really discovered the business side of fashion and the world of product development. So that's how I got into that to begin with, and that's where I've been ever since.
Okay. Carla, what do you think?
Well, I'm pretty far myself. I also grew up in California, and I entered UCSD as a biomed major. Clearly not a plastic surgeon right now. It took me as a shock. I started taking chemistry, and I just really didn't like it, and I just felt a little stuck. I was in a science school, and I switched to communications and started looking for internships.
Were there skills that you picked up while you were at school that you sort of translated?
Well, I mean, my first internship I kind of just took because it was the first that came to me. I had a feeling I wanted to do PR. It sounded cool at that time. I didn't really know much, about anything. I read fashion magazines, and I knew you could work in fashion, but I didn't know at what capacity. And I'd heard about public relations, and my first internship was for a very small jewelry designer. And I was a strong writer, so I wrote a lot of her materials, and I went from there. I just stayed focused, and as far away as I felt from fashion, I just had a clear goal of what I wanted to accomplish and stayed focused.
Very good. Will, what about you?
Well, as I said before to you, I thought I was going into landscape architecture. That didn't happen either. But I always knew I wanted to be in fashion in some realm. And then once I figured out that this was an actual job, because I went to Notre Dame, which this fashion is not even talked about, let alone shown by anyone. And I was also begrudgingly good at math, which I tried to hide for a long time. But then I found this job where in merchandising and in buying, you can combine math and fashion and be good at your job. So it was literally like made a perfect job for me. So I just kind of stumbled upon it also.
That's a very good point, actually, the math thing. That comes up time and again when we do this. If you're good at maths, good for you, because that's really important. So I spent my career as a designer and a creative director before I was in this role. And even as a designer, it matters. You have to know how much stuff costs. Because if you don't know how much it costs, you can't sell it, and then you can't make a living out of it. So it's not to be underestimated at all. Nancy, how important are maths to you?
Wow. I too was very good at math, but I do want to clarify, math is very important because part of being in merchandising or buying, you do have to watch the bottom line. At the end of the day, you have plans, you have profit targets, and you need to make the company money. However, you don't need to be doing theoretical math at your desk. So I just want to clarify, math is incredibly important as it pertains to the business, but you don't have to be a math theory expert. But it is absolutely critical to your job. And I will say that I found it to be so incredibly critical that I actually came back to Parsons where I taught retail math because I felt that passionately about it. I know that sounds really geeky, but it is a very important part of the job.
You remind me of someone that came to speak at the school a little while ago, he was a lawyer, and he was obviously filled with self-loathing, as any lawyer would be. And he knew he wanted to do something rather more dignified, so he wanted to do fashion. So he came to us, and we taught him about the fashion business, and now he's the general counsel for Burberry's, which makes perfect sense. He's still a lawyer. He's using all of his key abilities. He's not wasted anything that he studied, and he's in the industry that he wants to be in.
Absolutely.
So what about you, Alexis?
What, math?
Yeah, maths. How far are you from what you thought you were going to do?
Yes, that question. Well, after graduating from Michigan State, I thought I was going to be a chiropractor, and then I sprung it upon my parents that I wasn't going to chiropractic college. I was actually moving to New York City and going to Parsons School of Design. So that was kind of a big shock to the family, but I thought that I definitely, once I got into it, I really didn't know what fashion was all about. Kind of had a friend who told me, oh, you would be really good at this. And I was like, okay, New York, why not? And so I was in merchandising and buying, and I did that for a couple years. And once the brand that I was with decided to close the business, I had a Parsons professor who offered me a job to work under him. So then I started going from merchandising to product development. And then now my new job is in product development and production. So it's completely a whirlwind from where I started, but definitely even within the fashion aspect, I went from doing the merchandising and buying, and now I'm in production. So it's far off from where I ever thought I would be. But
I think there's a key point in there as well, which is one of the opportunities you had came through a connection.
Yes.
And one can't emphasize enough the importance of relationships in this industry, but frankly in this city, I think. You're nothing if you don't know people. And people, will come to us and say, well, how do you know people? I mean, you do it by talking to everybody and by being nice and making connections, and worthwhile ones. I mean, nobody wants to go to networking events. That's some ghastly 80s invention. But there are appropriate opportunities for talking to people and making an impression. That's what's really key.
yeah, actually my last two positions were through networking, so I think that is very important. The first being with a Parsons teacher that influenced me, and then when I was in another previous position, it was a factory owner, and that's how I got my job at American Eagle. He brought my resume into the head of production and was like, this girl's great, you need to hire her, and I had no production experience before that. So it's kind of interesting making those networking.
So actually, I'm interested in other people's experiences in that. So Nancy, how did you get your job?
It's actually I was just about to jump on that and connect the dots, because my first job at Gap Incorporated, I was an assistant merchant. I had a senior vice president, her name is Robin. Fast forward 5 to 6 years later. Fast forward to 5 or 6 years later, she was actually at West Elm for Williams-Sonoma. And the funny thing is, she was the president of the company at that time. And we reconnected, and I went into the company. I've been there for 5 years now. So what the point I was going to make was, networking, it can be external, but it can also be within the company that you're working at now. The connections that you meet today are potentially connections that can, withstand your entire career, and you might connect with them again. And I just want to really bring this point home to this group today. Make sure you play well in the retail world, because you will continuously cross paths with the same people over and over again. So it's incredibly important to not only network, but to play nice, and help your retail community out there, because you will, without a doubt, run into the same people again. In fact, there are certain people on this panel who are my friends, and they don't even work at the company I work at. You'll cross paths, trust me.
I'm reminded of one of the comments that the Fashion Draft, which is the subsequent event to this, when a smaller number of people come back to the city, they were lucky enough to meet with Terry Lundgren, who's arguably the most influential person in global retail. He's the chairman and CEO of Macy's. And he has this he's got lots of little sayings, but one of them is bloom where you are planted. And he probably nicked it. I mean, we all nick our best lines, but it's absolutely vital. We counsel our students. If you've got an internship, and the internship you get is to be a Marc Jacobs studio, and all you do is stand in the corner and make coffee, make it really good coffee. Which sounds really obvious, but you'd be amazed how many students are like, it's not my job to make the coffee. Like, it really is. And you really need to make, you bloom where you are planted, or make friends, or, make a good impression. Will, how did you get your job?
I actually got my job through someone I worked with at J. Crew. She moved to Brooklyn Industries, and then when I was looking for a new job, I spoke with her at Brooklyn Industries, and she brought me on board, actually. So it was the same type of... It is very important to be nice with the people you work with, and never say that's not my job, or I shouldn't have to do that, because people remember it. And you run into the same people over and over again.
So it's important, but I don't think it's the only way to do it. And Carla, you have a website that it gets an awful lot of attention, and that's not your only interest. So where did you come up with the concept for that? Because that was brand new. No one had that before.
Well, it was really a case of using my resources. Again, I was in San Diego, also not the most fashionable place. Flip-flops kind of were the coolest thing. And I was just consistently online looking for internships, getting ready for that next summer, because I was competing with Parsons students. I mean, they have Marc Jacobs right at their door. So, just researching, staying curious about what was out there. And I think it's really funny. I'm still friends with all the people I interned with. Some of them are my peers. Some of them no longer work in the industry. And, one of them actually got me the job I currently have. Her friend was leaving the position and knew that I, love jewelry and was looking for a new job. And you really never know who's going to be able to help you out. I also, once got a position from interviewing, and a year later, that interviewee moved roles and thought of me, literally a year later, and contacted me. You really never know who's going to help you. So again, play nice. Be respectful, and most importantly, stay off your cell phone while you're interning. Yes. You're there for a reason. Help us all out and be memorable.
The good news is most people don't realize any of this. They just don't. Like I interview people for different jobs. I'm sure we all do at this point. And 9 out of the 10 of the resumes you get are garbage. They've got typos, they've got form letters, they're badly photocopied, they've got some little picture on them, they've got some perfume, some dodgy paper. It's really, 90% of the competition is not that strong. So as long as you think hard and you behave well and you remember that you are your own brand and you do everything you can to be successful, then it's actually not as difficult as you think. Laura, how did you get your job?
Well, I'm really going to go against this whole thing, although I think networking is really important and having connections. But I actually just really liked J. Crew, and I submitted my resume on their website. And literally when I did it, I was like, I'm never going to hear back. You have to know someone to have someone call you back. And they called me the next week. So that was the first time that had ever happened. So very interesting. But just to show you how small the retail world is and the world in general, I was in Paris in April, and I was sitting at a random restaurant next to a random person, and we realized we were both speaking English, so of course we started talking. Turns out she was from New York, also in fashion, owned a showroom, and worked with my old VP. Like, it was just outrageous that we all knew each other, we knew the exact same names, and the world is so small. I knew, when I left Macy's a year ago, where I started, I knew I would see all those people again, and I keep in touch with them all the time. Like, be genuine about it, but keep in touch because you will see them again.
It is an interesting point, though, because no one likes you don't like to be networked.
Right.
Believe it or not, I actually get people write to me on LinkedIn saying, I'm just networking you. And I feel slightly violated. But, it's just such a dumb thing to say. And maybe that's appropriate in some circles, I don't know, but it's not in mine. And I know it's not in any of the people I know either. So, Will, what have been the high points for you?
In my life, in my retail life.
Of course, in your life, yeah, whatever you
want. I've really hit my stride at Brooklyn Industries because it's such a small company. So I think it's important to figure out as you're going through your career whether you want to be part of a large company or a small company or a fast fashion company or a more high fashion company. And I think an important way to do that is through internships. So you guys are lucky that you can have multiple internships. But my high point has truly been getting to Brooklyn Industries, and it's a very small team, and I have a lot of, I don't want to say authority, but I oversee a lot, and it's a fast fashion company, so it's very interesting. But I've come from large companies that are slower, and the fashion's not as fast, and so you try out a few different things. You're not going to hit your spot, the first job you get, so kind of stick it out.
What about you, Nancy?
I don't have such a dissimilar situation than Will had. I got a lot of foundational training through the Federateds of the world, the Gaps of the world. I worked in merchandising, I worked in design, and it really helped me figure out what I wanted. And what I wanted was to be at a more entrepreneurial type company that was an incredibly strong brand, and that really had a very strong design perspective, and that's West Elm. That's where I am right now. In terms of a high point, I actually had a full circle moment today, and it was a major high point. Last year, 1 year ago, I went to South Africa, met with tons of designers. The people in South Africa really don't have the resources to bring all their amazing designs to the rest of the world. So what we did was we collaborated with about 15 different South African designers. And we brought their designs to fruition at reasonable prices, which also reverts back to them because not only do they make money off of it, but they get a global marketing for something that previously was just in their own South Africa world. So today I just came back from, fast forward 1 year, and I just came back today from Philadelphia where we were setting the new fall floor set, which means we went to a prototype store, brought in all the new product, set it up, blessed it, and it's going to roll out to the rest of our chain. But it was a full circle moment for me because I went to South Africa to work with this product, saw it to fruition, and now it's in the store, and I couldn't be more proud. And, people laugh when I say this. We also did it on a private jet, so that doesn't hurt.
But, that's a really important point because if you wanted to go out and make sick amounts of money, then you go and be a banker. Or I don't know, like a lawyer or some awful thing. But you'd be soulless and just detested. But you wouldn't have the rewards that we get in the fashion business. The fashion business is amazing. You can do so many things. And as you said, you feel this sense of satisfaction, this personal satisfaction. The fact that you set something up which people are now working. They're feeding their families because of what you did. And you're making people happy over here by giving them stuff that they want.
And here's the thing is, you can go ahead and try to be an investment banker. I was supposed to be a doctor. That was supposed to happen. But if you don't figure out what you're passionate about, and I should have known this way long ago, 8 years old, I was making beads in my parents' kitchen, selling them downtown. I was a merchant at heart, yet I still went into pre-med. But I've never looked back since I entered retail because at the heart of it, I loved it. And when you love something, you're going to be successful at it. So people told me, you're never going to make money. You're never going to do this. You're never going to do that. Guess what? I'm doing it. I'm successful, and I'm happy doing it. You're not going to last if you're not happy. So find out what you're passionate about, and you're going to exude that passion, and you will be successful.
That's a really key point, because if you love doing something, chances are you're pretty good at it, and there'll be an infectious energy around you in doing that. But you also mentioned an interesting point. I interviewed Jeff Staple recently, and someone might know him on here, I don't know. He's an incredibly influential streetwear designer. He designs Nikes and all kinds of things. And he went to NYU, which apparently is a school. But he said when he was at NYU, wasting his time, he didn't realize you could be a designer. This is the point. He didn't realize there was such a job. He thought stuff just came out of factories. Right. You know, and you just bought it, and the factory made whatever they were going to make, and it ended up in the store. And he's a smart guy. So the message there is that if you are good at something, and you fancy being in the fashion industry, just as the guy who's now at Burberry's is, then it probably exists. Like there are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people just in New York in the fashion industry doing everything you can think of, everything. If it's happening in industry, it's probably happening in fashion. So think hard about that, because you may be you're studying something now other than fashion. So if you like doing what you're doing, but you think you want to be in the fashion business, we probably want you. We probably need you. Alexis, what's been your high points, apart from tonight?
I think traveling. I think that I've had great opportunities to travel to different countries, doing production. I was in Guatemala a couple months ago, one of our big factories that does a ton of business for us. At other positions, I've been to Taipei, Shanghai, Honduras. Like, I've just been able to go to places that I never expected to be able to go to, and it's for a good cause. You're going into these factories, and you are making a difference in these people's lives. It may not be the actual product that comes out in the beautiful designs, you know, that were discussed, but it is the fact that you have employed them as a position within the, you know, in wherever they are, and you are bringing, you know, food to their tables. And I think that that is a kind of a good moment, because you get caught up in everything else that goes into fashion, and the bottom line is that you are also providing, you know, work for other people in small countries, and that feels good to me.
So of course it's not all gravy. There are things that we have to do that we might care a little bit less for, and we probably should have studied those a little bit harder at school. So Laura, in your job day to day, what are the bits that you'll be fine when you don't have to do them anymore? And because I think it's important to be realistic about, you know, one's expectations. I mean, it drives me up the wall when people intern at designers and they say, all I did was copy and photocopies. Well, I wasn't designing the line. I wasn't designing the runway pieces, and you're like 22. So, you know, there's a reality to what we do, and some things are a lot less glamorous, and it's important to understand what they are, because, you know, you need to study them a little bit harder so you're better at them. Maths is clearly one. But Laurel, what do you not look forward to quite the most out of everything you do?
I mean, I think, to be totally honest, it's like the administrative stuff. There's a lot of administrative things, I think, especially for like a production or product development role, because you're really you're supporting the other teams, you're keeping track of everything that goes into a garment. So that means a lot of filing, to be quite honest. And to give you an example, when I started out my role, I was the only person working on the product development side, and their procedure was to literally hand me stacks of design cards that design put together, like hard copy papers, on my desk this high every day, just like coming and coming and coming, like an endless slew. And I would like literally take these stacks of papers and put them in a bag that I would send to Hong Kong, like hard copies of paper. And I was like, what year is it? Is it 2012? Like, this should not be happening. So I actually instituted it, like, going digital. Let's send this by email so the factories get them sooner. We're not killing all these trees, and I don't have to file as much. And that has changed my life. It's changed everyone's lives. It's made things a lot easier. So I think that's what I look forward to least, but I was also really happy that I got to put something new into place that helped everyone out and has kind of pushed us forward a few centuries.
That is a fantastic point, you know. We have a lot of conversations around the nature of the industry, and, you know, we're making clothes just the same way that we made them 120 years ago. You know, we still get pieces of fabric, cut shapes out, sew them together, and put them on, and that's how we make clothes. And so there's incredible Luddism around. However, we also reinvent everything we do every 3 months at least, or every 11 months, you know, every month, if you work for a big store. So there's no hanging around. And fashion, in some ways, is very slow to embrace, but really, in most ways, is very, very quick to embrace. It's not like a new car that you bring out a new model every 3 or 4 years. Carla, you couldn't have done what you do without the internet. I mean, it seems kind of redundant to say that at this point to a bunch of 20-somethings, but it's true. You know, internships had to be handled by paper and still are in some places. So which bits of your various areas are you, do you wish you'd studied a little bit harder at school, shall we say? Well, you're still at school, though, as well.
Well, actually, math. I know I work in PR, and I never knew that it would require math. Budgets and, you know, figuring out cost and wholesale. I have to sit there, or I sometimes have to sit there, not so much anymore. When I was working in-house, I would have to sit there with my little calculator, you know, doing the 2.2 and multiplying everything, and I hated math. So I wish I had, you know, really, I guess, gotten some more tutoring in that. And also, to your point about, you know, modernization and technology, I also think it's very interesting that in this age of technology, computer, everything over email, you know, how much difference a phone call could make or a handwritten note. It seems like the further we delve into technology, you know, that really personal communication is kind of lost, and people really value that. So pick up the phone, handwrite a thank you note. You never know what's going to happen.
That's a really nice segue into Will, the way that Brooklyn Industries is run. Because, yeah, I mean, maybe you want to say a little bit about the formation of the company and how it's run and why it's run that way.
I mean, it being such a fast company, we actually get more done going to the person's desk and talking with them face to face, and not a lot of emails get, oh, I didn't get that, type of filed in their inbox. But so it's very important in our office to actually go and speak with the person, and we are still always on the floor with swatches and up on the walls. The walls are all cork, you know, putting things up and taking things down, and so we have a lot of face-to-face time, which is kind of required in a company where you're moving so quickly, because you need to actually get the confirmation from the person, like right there, that you're going to move forward with something, which is great. It was actually like that at J. Crew as well, which is where I kind of learned to take the on-the-floor method to Brooklyn Industries, but so it is very fast there, which is good.
But for me, the point there, though, is that it used to be you had to do everything by hand. You had to go and talk to people, you had to ring them up, or you would fax them. Right. Believe it or not, no, I shouldn't say that. When I started work, there was a telex machine, and you would telex people, and I'm incredibly young. But we moved from that to so very much a face-to-face, on-the-phone communication to a paperless office where we email everything, and we're sort of there still. But you know, when someone emails me from 20 feet down the corridor, it really annoys me. Like, what is that all about? Well, you not have legs. Some people don't, and I feel bad for them, but you do. So get up, walk. And, you know, I think Brooklyn Industries, we saw the founder speak in this very room, actually, a little while ago. Right. And it was fascinating to see that it was a locally sourced, you know, locally conceived project. And that, you know, we're all aware of sustainability and the movements towards that, etc. But it's much more than using right-on organic fabric. It's thinking in a completely new way. And you guys will all be at the forefront of that. And it's, you know, it's certainly worth paying attention, not least to someone like Brooklyn Industries.
Yeah, we actually, to add on to that part, there's a coffee shop across the street from our office is based out of Dumbo, and they were just throwing away all of their the bags that the coffee beans actually came in. So we approached them, we asked if we could take the coffee bags, and now we actually have a bag production line in our office where these women actually create bags, tote bags, out of these coffee bean bags. And it happens literally 20 feet from my desk, so. And those are the things that are selling the best, because people can't find them elsewhere, and it's new and it's sustainable, and so.
It's great. I mean, confounding business models is ironic because you're all here because you're interested in the fashion business, and so conceivably you'll go into the business, but the business is not one thing, not by any stretch. And it's going to be a very different thing tomorrow and the day after. And if you can think of something, bring it in. I mean, one of the amazing things about this city, which certainly we're all lucky enough to live in, is you can do anything here. If you can think it up, you can probably do it. There'll be someone that wants to do that. So, Alexis, talk to me about life at American Eagle.
Well, Unfortunately, our merchants are in Pittsburgh, so for me, it's a little bit harder to go face-to-face when I want to speak to them, when I have to pick up the phone. But for me, I think it's more of, I love the phone, I love the face-to-face with the designers, but when you're dealing with so many units and so much dollar volume that I'm associated with, I put everything in email. Everything is kind of a CYA. And unfortunately, that's just the way it is, because in my area, it's kind of, I'm a little bit more of a detective sometimes, where it's, why is this there? Or why is this delivery late? And we're losing, money because the factory's late on this and that and the other. And so for me, everything I do is, yes, I love the face-to-face time. I do pick up the phone. I call everybody and chit-chat and, get the sign-off on the phone. And then immediately after, it's, as per our conversation, this is what I'm doing. And it saved me so many times, because sometimes you think that somebody, will remember those conversations, and even from the top level down, they just kind of forget. And so, yes, I think that is my take on the whole face-to-face time. But overall, I mean, it's a great opportunity working at such a big company, and I'm really happy where I'm at.
So a couple of things. I'm hoping that you guys have written down some questions, because I'm going to be coming to you in a minute for questions. But before we do that, perhaps one by one the panel could just say, so we talked about where you work and a couple of things you do, but I'm sure everyone's interested in what does a day look like? What are the core things that you spend your time doing? Because everyone's got certain skills and certain interests. So where, what kind of things, what do you actually do? Like Laura, what do you do?
A lot of detective work. It's a lot of emailing, to be honest. Like I said, I communicate with the factories overseas, and I'm kind of the intermediary between them and our merchants in-house and our designers. So from the development standpoint, I am working with the design team on upcoming seasons, making sure that the factories understand, what design's visions are for the samples that we're getting in for our presentations, making sure everything is on time, making sure the fabric mills have shipped all their fabric. It's a lot of coordinating all of that. And then from the bulk production side, so once the merchants have actually decided they've bought something and there's a PO in the system, I'm tracking all of the approvals for every garment. So making sure that the fabric quality is correct, the color is right, that all the trims have been ordered. So you're kind of like a project manager, making sure everyone's on time and doing what they need to be doing to get the product to the stores.
Very good. Carla, what about you?
Well, seeing that I work in communications, a lot of my job is based on relationships and making sure that those relationships stay solid. There's a lot of editors out there, and there's also a lot of PRs like me. So making sure that, I'm calling to say hi, seeing what they're working on. Also, I swear I'm not just going to lunch every day. I also do, a lot of high-level thinking as far as strategy. I read a lot. And I don't just limit myself to Women's Wear Daily. I'm reading the Times, Wall Street Journal, seeing what's going on in business, really making that a priority in my day, I should say, just to see, what other businesses are doing. Maybe there's a way that we can tie in with them. I have to bring a lot of ideas to the table, and unfortunately, a lot of them don't come to fruition. But it's just about, staying creative and in the know.
So, well, apart from overseeing coffee sack production, what do you do?
Well, on any given day as a merchant or a buyer, you're overseeing really 4 seasons, where 3 seasons out, design is presenting it to you. They're presenting that season to you. 2 seasons out, you're buying. You're actually doing all the math to figure out how much you need, how much you're going to sell, what it costs, what's the margin. 1 season out, you're tracking shipping with production and making sure it's going to get there on time and where it's going to sit on the floor. And then the current season, you're actually tracking sales in the store, and you're seeing, when do I need to mark it down? Do I need to promote it? Is something selling so rapidly that I need to chase it or fly it in or air it in from future orders? So it's kind of exciting that you are literally touching an entire year every day, which it's a lot of fun. And then on good days, well, those are good days, but on really great days, you go competitive shopping to see what's out there, find trends, and go out with your designers, and it's a lot of fun.
So you can always tell someone that works in the fashion business because they have no idea what today's date is.
the year.
It just means, yeah, the year, it means nothing.
2013.
Yeah. So Nancy,
You know, Will and I do a very similar thing, so I won't repeat what he said, but, you know, one thing I do want to emphasize to this group is every single day, first thing in the morning, you analyze sales. So you can project sales a year before you get there, and all is good because you think you're going to grow by 5% or whatever you should, you know, deem appropriate. But the reality is today's world is volatile. What sales you see today are maybe not the sales trends you're going to see tomorrow. And so you have to make a lot of decisions on the spot. Do you want to email more? Do you want to put a promotion in? Do you want to take things to markdown? How will that impact your bottom line? Again, you know, I promise you we're not lying. It goes back to the math thing and really understanding your business on a day-to-day level. You know, a lot of the facets of retail can be so much fun, product design, but there's also a part of it that's inventory, planning, understanding your gross margin, you know, are you turning a profit? And that can change on a daily basis. So first and foremost, first thing in the morning, definitely looking at my business.
so a bit of housekeeping. Perhaps someone can bring the microphone in somewhere prominent so that those who have questions could stand behind the microphone in a line. Alexis.
I mean, I'm in production, so same thing as Laura had said. Just on top of that, I definitely do also read all the trade publications and see what's going on worldwide because that's where my production is. So it's really important not only on a PR side or a merchandising side to see what's happening in the world, but also from a sourcing side. What's the price of cotton? What's happening in the world and how it's going to affect your daily business? And that goes along with, you know, my sourcing strategy, thinking top big picture of where my product is going to be produced in the next year and how that's going to benefit the company if there's any way strategically that we can utilize fabrication costs or anything to get to, you know, a better place and to bring more dollars in. That's what we're always looking for. So I think that's...
Very good. All right, so we've had some fascinating insights and some information about what these guys do. Who's got a question? There's a microphone somewhere, so how are we going to do this microphone? Should people just go over there? So can I be a terrible pain in the neck and ask people to go to the microphone over there to ask the questions? I do apologize, but that way we get it all recorded and no one will miss anything. If I could ask, keep the questions as succinct as you can, and we'll try and get them all answered and we'll try and get through all of them, because I hate to leave anyone at the end of the line who hasn't got to ask their question. So yes, the first question.
First, I would like to say thank you for taking time out of your busy schedules. My name is Keegan, and being that managing your personal brand is so important, as discussed earlier in the discussion, what are some qualities or values that you would say separate those with, you know, superficial interest in the industry and those with pure passions, that separate those into those two different categories? And what would you say is maybe one value that you think separated yourself into that category, rising up into your positions now?
So you're in PR, Carla. Why don't you take that one?
I was going to offer that. Actually, you know, it's pretty apparent when you're working with somebody and you know that they're in it for a party invitation or, you know, champagne, I guess. You'd be surprised. Really, it's the people I work with that they don't complain. They're really engaged. They ask questions. They bring things to the table. I think there's this, you know, preconceived notion that interns are only supposed to get coffee and do, you know, menial labor and do deliveries. But the ones that really, you know, that stick out in my mind are the ones who, you know, they came up and offered some advice, or, you know, if they weren't doing anything, they'd come to my desk and say, how can I help you? Or, you know, didn't watch the clock. So you'd be surprised how apparent it really is. And as far as a quality that I think stuck out to, I guess, my employer's eyes, was either my confidence or my resilience. You're bound to do something wrong. Listen, you know, you're learning, I'm still learning, I still mess up. Really, it's about taking constructive criticism and finding a solution to the problem. That's something I've always been proud of myself in being able to do. So, you know, really just figuring out a solution.
Fantastic, thank you. Next question.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mary, and I'm from the University of Virginia. And we are here to talk about fashion and business. And I think all of your stories have proved that you didn't have a straight path, and didn't start out just in fashion. What advice do you have for us, people who aren't in Parsons or aren't studying design and kind of maybe non-traditional majors or don't have the background in the industry specifically, and what kind of would you suggest as a starting point for us?
Laura, what do you think about that?
Obviously, I had no background at all. I think internships are the number one most important thing. That was my education. That's the only way I got any background. And I think even getting an internship can be really difficult. I had a hard time until I got involved with the YMA Fashion Scholarship Fund. So just like looking for organizations that help people who aren't coming from backgrounds like design or fashion related, that's really important. And things like this, like you're meeting all these people today. Maybe the people that you're meeting today are going to get an internship, and maybe down the road they'll get a job and they'll be able to pull you in somehow. Like we said, like connections are so important. So make them not with the idea that you're going to get something now, but that you guys will help each other as you move forward. I think that's the most important thing.
There's three things I would add to that very succinctly. Look for opportunities. They're everywhere. Don't underestimate the importance of working at retail. So if you're in the middle of nowhere and the only thing there is a Banana Republic store, work in the Banana Republic shop. Because when you come to the industry and they say, what have you been doing? You want to say, I know about something. And the other one is never, ever, ever, ever start a conversation with someone if you haven't done your homework. Don't do it. Because if they say to you at any point, oh, it's on our site, and you don't know that, then it's all over. Not you, but... All right, next question.
Hi, my name is Megan, and I just want to thank you guys for coming, and we appreciate you giving us your advice. I just wanted to ask, you're from a lot of different backgrounds. Some of you wanted to pursue fashion, went to school for it, but how well did you feel prepared for your first job? Maybe especially Alexis, like you went into product development, hadn't been in that at all. Like, how did you start your jobs and like your careers? And maybe you were prepared, maybe you weren't. But like, what advice could you give us for starting your first job and being successful in it?
I definitely, being an intern, I think that we've already kind of covered that, getting great internships, but going in and just being ready to learn. Some companies have different programs where they're going to teach you what you need, but most of them just throw you in. So you just have to be ready with like your eyes and ears and everything about you just to be thrown in and to embrace it. And I think that there's great education, there's great research you can do and be passionate on your own, but you really, once you get into your position, you just have to be ready to just embrace everything and be ready to learn. And I think that that's what will get you to the next step.
Ask smart questions,
Yes.
which you're all doing, which is good, but don't even think about doing something without asking questions first.
And take initiative. I think that initiative is always the key. If you're bored, there's always something to do. So.
Yeah. Next question.
Hi, I'm Morgan on behalf of fashionista.com. I was going to ask, what do you think is the defining factor between a good and bad internship, and do you have any intern horror stories?
What about you, Will?
Yeah, that's
You
funny
look
you
a horrible
ask.
intern.
I had a terrible intern who missed 3 days of work and then came in and said, when you just wake up in Bellevue Hospital? And I was like, no, I don't know when that happened. But do you mean good and bad internship for yourself or good and bad intern?
Well, the experience overall.
Oh, I think an internship that allows you to delve into multiple areas of a company or of a position is really the best internship to have. And if your internship is does not specify the area that it's under, ask if you can I go shadow this person for a day? Can I go help this or suggest things? Get your fingers in as many parts of the company as possible so you can learn what you
want to be the person that they are trying to find a job for.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. Don't let them have a job opportunity and then go, who should I put in here? You want to be someone that leaves them with the impression that, God, I've got to find a place for that person. And it's radically different. Okay, next question.
Hi, I'm Claire. I was just wondering, obviously, fashion itself is a very collaborative industry. You've all made it very clear that it's a small world and you know a lot of people within it. But as somebody with multiple interests, how much crossover on the business side would you say there is with entertainment and media and those kind of other creative industries? And have you experienced that personally in your work?
It's a good question, that. Who's going to answer it?
I can answer it. I guess with planning events, you know, you need to hire a band or a DJ. You work with catering, so, you know, finding out, like, who's it in the culinary world. I mean, you can find different ways. Maybe it's as simple as dressing a celebrity. You know, it's really what you make of it, I think.
So I was a designer before, as I mentioned, and we are a brand. Parsons is a brand. You hear me mercilessly plugging it throughout. But the short answer is everything, everywhere. Like, you are your own brand, and you have to interact with everybody. And you've got to be looking for the right catering company, because you're going to have a party at some point, and look for a venue for it, and meet PR people, and be nice with PR people. And if you happen to run into someone famous, find out where they shop. Like, get your clothes on them. And if you don't know about social media, which I'm perplexed that some people apparently don't, then go and learn. Because we're nothing without that at this point. Like, as a designer, you've got to be able to do all of it, or you've got to understand all of it. And a designer is nothing without the business person that's helping them or running the company, and they definitely need to know even more about all of it. So it's I think that's a very, very good question, and the answer is simply all of it all the time.
Okay.
Next question.
Hi, my name is Renee Sweeney, and I'm interning in the retail and consumer goods practice at PricewaterhouseCoopers. And my question is, if you guys were to decide to open a fashion firm, who would be the first person you would contact as a business mentor?
Wow, that's really good. You lot are smart. Nancy, what do you think about that? No pressure.
Besides, well. Wow, that's, you know, I'm actually going to go ahead and say you should probably, or I've looked for multiple layers of mentors in my life. So there isn't one person who just served the perfect mentor for myself. You know, one person that I do greatly admire is Mickey Drexler. You know, he really birthed Gap and definitely recreated J. Crew. He is a visionary for sure. You know, one of my own personal mentors today is actually a CMO of my own company, and his name is Pat Connolly, one of the most influential marketers in the world, and really revolutionized the multi-channel business, which is catalog, online, and retail stores. And then, you know, I would look for a product visionary. Unfortunately, we can't contact Steve Jobs right now, but he is without a doubt a visionary and innovator in the product space, hands down. So to sum it up, I would look for more than one mentor, because there's so many things that you can learn from leaders in our industry, and you shouldn't just limit yourself only to fashion. You should look at products, you should look at other brands, you should look at PR brands. There's something to glean from everything.
That's a very good question. The other thing I would add to that is ask for things they want to give you. So don't write to someone and say, will you be my mentor? Because that's a pain in the neck, and no one's got time for that. But ask them a question that they're going to want to answer. Because it's a very generous industry. There's a lot of people with a lot of time. Here's some of them. And they'll do it. They want to help. And they don't want to help because it's good for them. They want to help because it's the right thing to do. But only if you ask them in an informed, smart, intelligent, and in a way that they want to help you. Okay, good question. Next one.
Hi, my name is Christina, and I'm from Virginia. And I was just wondering, what are your thoughts of graduate school? And for those of you that attended, was it beneficial for where you are now? Or is it better just to get experience within the industry? Or do both at the same time?
Should I take that one?
Go ahead.
I'm old and I did it. So I went back to business school, which is it's honestly kind of a non-traditional route. And the school I picked was even more non-traditional, which was MIT, which is known for innovation. What I would say about it is you really have to couple your graduate degree with tangible experience. So have both, especially in the retail space. People who hire, they want to know that you have some experience, and then you can leverage that and build on it and get your graduate degree. The thing that I would caution you about retail is, you know, like I've said, it's all about being passionate about the business. And go back to graduate school because you think it's going to help your career. It's not a straight line. I chose to go back to business school because at some point I want to be the leader at the top of a company. And when you're at the top of a company, you really need to know everything from operations to finance to design to store operations. You need to know all of it. You don't need to be an expert in everything, but going back to business school for me was an opportunity to get a broader view. You also get a chance to travel. I went to the Middle East, and that's a huge retail environment in today's world. So what do you want out of it? I wanted to learn about entrepreneurship, innovation, new retail territories, and business in a broad sense. So just make sure whatever you do, you feel really passionate about, and you know how you're going to apply it to your profession, because in terms of graduate school and retail, there's really no straight line.
Good answer. Next question.
Hi, my name is Zach. I'm from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And so my question is for Laura, or anybody else who can speak to this, but when it comes to ideas or taking initiative, do you have, you can't see me, there's a poem away, but do you have any advice as to, especially for us young people, how to promote or take that initiative in a smart and tactful way with upper level management?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think probably the most comfortable thing is to start small. So, if you feel most comfortable with the person that you're interacting with every day, like your manager, obviously go to them first and just be honest with your ideas. I think it's easy to be intimidated when you're first starting out. You think that you don't really know what you're talking about, but really you're the fresh eyes on the business, so it's important to hear from you. And it's important that you're honest and open about what you think. And I think especially, I may not have felt like this at Macy's. Like I felt like a little bit smaller, like you're a small fish in a huge ocean at a place like that. But at J. Crew, I think because of Mickey, the way that he is, our CEO, he really wants to hear from everyone, and he really kind of sets that as a standard for the company. So maybe even just working at a place that has that more open-minded feel to it.
I would add being humble as well, because I think it's one thing to have an idea and you may think it's brilliant, and it may be brilliant, but frankly you need to be humble because when you're entering a company there are brilliant people there already, and number one, they don't want to have their nose put out of joint by some smart ass telling them what to do, and number two, you may not understand the 400,000 other intricacies of the industry. So think about the way you're delivering your message.
Wait, that is so, sorry, I have to grab the mic. That is so, so, so important. I can't even tell you, have the intellectual curiosity, go for it, do what you need to do, but be humble. It is a big turnoff to not be humble. And I think you can gain respect through being intellectually curious, but humble at the same time. I would really emphasize that.
Okay, next question.
Hi, I'm Jessie. I'm just kind of wondering, I know you all have pretty extensive past career paths, and are you all, when you first start out, you're obviously not where you dreamed of being your whole life. Do you kind of just sit back and wait for opportunities to come to you through your networking?
You do hear of a lot of positions and openings and whatnot while you're out at events or things like that. So it's a tough balance, really.
You could almost say that if you're working hard and if you're good, you'll hear about stuff.
Yeah.
People will find you. Next question.
Hello, my name's Katie, and I kind of wanted to build off that last question. More specifically, what are your long-term goals, and how are you planning on getting there?
How long have you got? Alexis, why don't you answer that one? What are your long-term goals, dear?
Wow. I mean, definitely working my way up in a big company, and being a director would be where I want to be, I guess. So I don't know. It's tough because fashion it's changing all the time, and 1 minute which is good. That 1 minute I'm like, oh, I can see myself doing this, and then I get excited about maybe a new trend or whatever, and I'm like, oh, maybe I want to start my own company and do this, and so it's just kind of always being ready for opportunities, not jumping the ship when things are bad, because you can always learn from everything. One company may not be better than the next, so I'm not looking to work my way up in title just to do that. I want to be happy with where I'm at, but yeah, definitely working your way up, but just the right strategic way, not just jumping around because it's a higher position, because
I think there's a key point in that, which is being open to new ideas. Because I don't think any one of these people here, or anyone who's successful in the industry, knew that's what they wanted to be. You just don't. You join a company, you think, yeah, I want to be at the top. And someone says, what do you want to do? And you want to go, I want to be sitting on your desk. Like, it's just, that's not how it goes in the fashion business. It's just not. And in order to progress, you've got to keep a completely open mind, geographically, discipline-wise, and in every other way. Next question.
Hi, I'm Ashley. Sorry, I'm really bubbly. I have a question specifically for the buyers on the panel, Will and Nancy. I wanted to know how familiar you are with the e-commerce side of the business and whether you think that the buying process for that is any different than buying for brick and mortar.
I don't know. You start.
Okay, fine. I'll start. Sorry, we're friends too, so we're like, okay, so absolutely, the e-commerce business is what I like to call your #1 flagship store. Highest visibility, highest reach, and the potential to honestly be your biggest growth vehicle. So I'm lucky that in my company, in my job, the e-commerce business is actually, which is unusual, half of the business. Huge. And it's actually more profitable too. And you get to do all these cool things like animate, nice pictures, color a dream, things like that. So it's without a doubt so important. So one thing I would recommend to all of you out here is any digital online experience you can integrate into your current job, get that experience. If you don't have that ability in your internship, find it, research it, understand it. It is going to be by far the most important channel even in the years to come. So it's an excellent question, and you should without a doubt get that experience under your belt. I myself, from a day-to-day basis, work in brick and mortar retail. And I have worked in the direct-to-consumer business before, but I like to make sure that I'm integrated in it. And actually, I would also say people who work in brick-and-mortar retail are affected by e-commerce every single day. Think about the emails, think about the promotions, think about pooled inventory. It all works together.
They lie awake at night having nightmares about it. Yeah. Will, I'm actually going to cut you off, so I want to get through all the questions, but I think that was a good answer. Next question.
Ditto.
Hi, my name's Lauren, and this question's for Carla. I actually found my internship through your website, so thank you. And I just want to know kind of like the process you went through of going about to create such a successful website, and just who you were always trying to like help others, or was it more of like a business, or kind of how that went about?
Well, I started it as a blog, and to be completely honest, it was sheer boredom. I was at home, to be completely transparent with you guys. It's just that I was always looking at internships that I dreamt of having because I was in San Diego and they seemed so far away. So I figured, if I'm sitting here looking at internships, why not consolidate them into one place? So that was really how it got started. Then someone recommended my own site to me, so I thought maybe I have something happening here. This is pretty cool. So it just kind of went from there, and I just got so much out of my internships that it's something that I truly wanted to share. And granted, it kind of runs itself now, but I love to interact with my interns. I love grabbing lunch with them. I love seeing what they're up to now. I hope to one day work with them. It was a really special experience for me, and it feels so long ago, but it's still really close to my heart.
Great.
Thanks.
Next question. We've only got a few minutes, so if we can snappy, then we can get through everybody. Yes.
Hi, my name is Monica, and I am an internship aficionado. I absolutely love internships. I've been doing it for 5 years now, and I'm only 20. And actually, 2 of my internships I got from Carla's website. I received one from Anna Sweet and one from Shop Akira that I'm currently with right now. But my question is actually for Laura, because I'm also interested in fashion journalism, so I wanted to know about your experience in that industry.
My experience is rather brief. I only had one true internship in like a fashion magazine. It was More Magazine, which is for like women over 40.
Yeah.
So it was kind of interesting, and I was just an intern in the fashion department, or like tagging samples in and out. So I didn't really get true fashion editorial experience. I just felt for me in the end it wasn't actually the right thing. But I'm sure you look at Ed 2010, but that's where I would suggest you look for internships. Other than that, good luck.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next question.
Hello, my name is Lindsay. I'm interning at Care Rosh. Carla, she said hello and wishes you the best. But my question is, what new skills do you see the fashion industry seeking from our generation of interns and new job seekers? And personally, what new skills are you guys looking for?
So Will, why don't you take that one?
I think a big one, which is a large part of how I got my job at Brooklyn Industries, is having a blog. Well, for some people, knowing what a blog is, having a blog, running a blog, Twitter, Foursquare. Don't underestimate how much more well-versed you are in that than the people you will be working for. And don't just know about it, suggest ways that it can help the business and the company and drive sales. I think that's probably a big part.
Yeah. It's amazing how many people don't know about all that. Okay, good question. Next one.
Hi, I'm Taylor. I don't know if you guys watched the CFDA awards, but I'm a big fan of Scott Schumann, and when he accepted his media award, he gave like one or two pieces of advice, and the first thing was don't follow your dreams if that's not what you're good at. And I just thought that was sort of a bizarre comment. He said he wanted to be the next Giorgio Armani, and instead he became the first him. And I was just wondering if you ever felt like you doubted yourself to a point where you were thinking about doing something else, or if you can comment on his advice. I don't know, whatever that question leads you to.
It's a really good line. I hadn't heard that.
Yep.
So who wants to take that one? Carla, what about you? Are you following your dreams?
Yes. I really am. I mean, I discovered it through internships. I was all over the map. I interned in a fashion closet. I interned in a wholesale department. I did accessory design, and I'm a terrible drawer. But it was just, it was in San Diego, and I could do it. But I think that, you know, you'll find something that you're really good at and passionate about. And I just think a lot of it has to do with just, you know, following your goals. And you'll find something you're good at.
I think it's obviously what he means is be realistic about what you're good at and what you're not. You know, because I would love to be a footballer, but I suck at it, so it's pointless for me trying to do that. You know, but if you find something that you are good at and you love doing it, then find a way to incorporate that into what your dream can be. Your dream could be to be in the fashion business. And if you're a great lawyer, then so be a fashion general counsel, as the gentleman I mentioned earlier is. Good question.
Okay, thank you.
Next one.
Hello, my name is James. This is my second summer interning at Ralph Lauren. I had a question. If you could briefly discuss the importance of entering into an area that you might not necessarily love or be passionate about, but that will nonetheless prepare you for the job, for the director job or the VP, to make you more well-rounded.
I would extend that to doing an actual job that you didn't like that much. But what did you learn from it, and how has it helped you in where you are now?
I'll take that one.
Go on then.
All right. Okay, so I'll be honest. I started at Federated, like I admit to you guys. I was in the executive training program, and it was amazing from understanding the nuts and bolts of retail. But to be honest, I quickly found out I didn't love it. I loved retail, but I didn't like buying, because I was buying the product and I wasn't creating the product and I wasn't touching the customer, and it was somewhat of an archaic business model. I didn't love it. I only lasted a little over a year. But what it did help me understand, and plus I worked in shapewear, which is also a nicer word for girdles, so just to answer your question, I figured out what I liked and didn't like. I loved the business of retail. I didn't like buying, and I wasn't that interested in girdles. But if you really focus on what you love and then figure out what the next step is. So my next step was to go to Gap Incorporated, because it was a specialty retailer that really focused on the customer, really focused on creating new products, new brands, and creating a lifestyle experience in the store. That helped me get there. If I didn't go to Federated and have that experience, I wouldn't know what I wanted to do next. And that just catapulted me into my career.
That's great. Next question.
Hi, I'm Kristen Ulmer, and I'm currently at the University of Virginia. And my question's relating to, I guess, moving around to different jobs within the industry. So I guess one thing that really fascinated and surprised me about the industry, as I've learned about y'all's career paths and others' career paths, is that you change jobs, I guess, more frequently than I had initially anticipated. So, and you also mentioned how, the relationships you make with the people you work with are really important. So how do you strike a balance between, I guess, making relationships with people at a company and finding your niche there, and then also pursuing something I guess, how do you avoid burning bridges, or are there ever instances where people are upset that you've left a company? I guess, How does that dynamic work?
I'm going to just say a couple of things there because I used to be a creative director, so I hired a lot of different people. And when you look at resumes, you look at how long someone worked somewhere. And there's kind of I hope my fellow friends up here will disagree with me, but I think about 2 years. If it's less than 2 years in the fashion industry, you didn't really see it through. And it's hard to judge someone. Put it this way, the people that really suck generally lasted less than 2 years, and they have a succession of jobs. And if you go longer than 2 years, you've been around, you've seen the collection in, you've seen it sell, you've lived with the results of that, and then you've bought another one. So there's like a cycle that you probably need to go through. And you can disprove every single rule. You can be there for 3 months and something brilliant comes up, and someone interviewing you will say, "Why'd you do that?" And you say, "Well, look who it was. What was I going to say?" And people understand that. But there's no like, this is the rule. You have to do it. Sorry, I shouldn't answer questions, should I? I'm supposed to be the host.
No, that was good.
Does anyone disagree with me?
No, I disagree. I think that, I was only with Greg Norman Collection for a little over a year, and I think that I came in with a positive attitude, and I had great people working around me, so that's how I kept the great relationships, but I knew in my heart that I wasn't passionate for it, and I didn't want to affect the brand of me not coming in with my heart there, because I knew I loved fashion, but I just knew my heart wasn't in that product. And so I moved in within, slightly after a year, and now I'm in such a better place, and I've been at American Eagle for, over a year and a half, and I know that I'm going to be there for a long time because that's where my heart is now. So I don't think, and I think that you can explain that when you're in interviews and things like that. No, don't go jumping around all the time. It doesn't look good. But if you really aren't happy and it's going to come out in your work, then don't stay, because it's not worth it, because people are going to notice that, and then that's how you burn the bridges.
Should I tell you how I know you're right? Because I worked for Greg Norman for a little over a year as well. It's true.
But one thing is don't leave a job. Don't quit your job if you don't have another job to go to.
Yeah, don't do that.
Don't do that.
And never, ever, ever leave on bad terms.
And I may have found that out the hard way. But I'm just saying that you're much more employable if you're in a job, so just suck it up and stick with it.
Yeah. So next question. We have...
Hi, my name is Daniela. I'm an international student from Chile. I wanted to ask Carla specifically if anyone international has gotten an internship in New York through your webpage.
Yes, I understand it's a difficult process, and I feel for you. I know it's very challenging, but I have heard quite a few success stories.
Yes.
I wish I could elaborate, but I'm not that.
Oh, that's good. And in general, to every one of you, if what do you see like in job opportunities for people that are not in U.S. here in New York in the fashion business?
So we get that a lot at the school because a lot of our students are international. And when they leave, they get permission to work for a short period, but then they want to be with a company. So there are a couple of things you have to think about. One, some companies are big enough that they can sponsor you. They may not be where you want to end up, but they're big enough that they can do it, and it may be a really rewarding place to be for 2 years, and it gets you the visa. So you have to be circumspect about where you want to be. The other thing, and we have a lot of students in New York that want to go and work in Europe. The other thing is, if you want to be there, you can be there. The only thing you can do is go. Like I live in New York because I came to New York to get a job. That's why. And that's what has to happen. If you want to be somewhere, go there. Because you're definitely not going to get it if you don't go there. And if you go there and if you have to get a job washing dishes, then do that. An intern for free and do it off the books. But if that's what it takes, then do that. Because this industry is not for people that quite fancy it. And I'm not saying you do, but I mean, the point is that the people that are in it and that are successful are absolutely, desperately, passionately devoted to being in it. And that means if you, wherever you come from, if you want to be here, then come here.
Thank you.
Sure. And the last question.
Okay, I'm back. But my last question is, so all of you are obviously very successful, and I'm sure most of us would hope to be in your shoes in the future, sitting in on some panel, asking questions, helping the future generations. So how do you maintain balance in your life, excelling your job, yet also having time in your personal life for family and other activities you may do?
So do you mind if I kind of
or any tips
hijack that question? There's a question that I want to ask all of them, and your question may well feature in what they're talking about. But the question that I want to ask them individually as a closing to this excellent conversation is, what would be the most important piece of advice that you want to give to all the people here? And it may well involve a work-life balance, I don't know. But why don't we just work our way? I mean, anyone can start, but we'll go through each of the panelists. Give a piece of advice, just something that's really worked for you or you think people should be thinking about as they go forward into their careers. Who wants to start? I will pick on someone.
I guess I'll go.
Carla.
I'm probably going to sound super redundant, but I really truly believe that you need to stay curious and explore options. Look outside of the fashion bubble and explore new things. I think it makes you a well-rounded person and an asset to a potential employer.
Laura?
I think even staying curious within your own industry and within different organizations like this, just always talk to the people around you, figure out what they're doing. What do you like about what they say? What do you like about what you're doing? Like, you just want to do what's best for you, and you never know, like we said, someone was a lawyer and they didn't know they could be a lawyer in fashion. Like, there are so many jobs that we don't know about yet. I feel like I'm still figuring that out. So the only way you're going to figure it out is by talking to people who have those jobs and seeing if that's right for you.
Will?
I think it's important not to be afraid to mess up, because you will mess up. But the important part is that if you, or when you do mess up or ruin something, go with a solution when you're delivering that news. That's huge. That's gotten me places. If you go with the solution versus just the bad news, it's very helpful.
Nancy?
I'm actually going to give some more tactical advice. You know, you're in your internships now. Simply ask as many questions as you can while you're there. You have a brief point in your career, a brief period where you have the permission to ask as many questions as you want. Understand what the person on the other side of the building is doing. Understand what your function can do for another function and vice versa, because that will better arm you for a full-time position, and also just another awareness of how to be better in your job. Ask questions, ask questions, ask questions. It is your time to do that, and it's totally acceptable.
Alexis?
At the end of the day, it's only fashion. So you'll meet a lot of people who are very intense, who have, think that you're saving lives. And sometimes you just have to stop and breathe and know that it's fashion, it's awesome, we're all passionate for it, but we're not saving lives. You may cost the company some money or whatever, but you just have to smile and breathe, because it's great, it's a great industry, but it's just fashion and it's changing.
I'd come back to your question, actually, if you don't mind me throwing in my 2 cents at the end. There's a terrible cliche, but it's absolutely true, and that's if you find something that you love to do, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's how it feels. I'm sure that's how all of us feel here. It just doesn't feel like work. So, of course, you have time for your family and, you have a personal life, etc. But you don't feel like you work either. It's quite amazing. So on that note, thank you all for being here. And please congratulate our panel and thank them.